Speaking of Han Talks first, ever wondered how I got the name for this podcast? Well, guys, I'm about to tell you. It's because of this little thing called Han Shot First. I know I'm wasting a bunch of your time by telling you where the name came from, but let's talk a little bit about it because it's one of the biggest controversies in Star Wars. So, back in the original version of that scene where Han and Greedo are confronting each other, Han shoots Greedo dead. Later, versions are edited so that Greedo attempts to fire at Han first. And George Lucas himself altered the scene to give Solo more justification for acting in self-defense. And many fans and commentators oppose the change, feeling that it weakens Solo's characters. Now, George Lucas has spoken on this many, many times, and so have the fans. I'm here to tell you that I'm going to read some quotes from George Lucas from different time periods about how he views about this scene, because he's changed it so many times. And even to this day, it's still changing, which kind of blows my mind.
Disney changed it now.
So, first of all, Dean, for me, I just didn't approve of the changes to begin with. I didn't see any reason why. I'll read you a quote from George why he did it. But what is your overall thought on Han Shot First / McClunky?
Han Shot First. Simple as that. But it's one of those things that it's... I get Lucas' standpoint of good guys don't do that, which I'm sure that's the quote you may be going for, or the thing where it's like a paragraph about that. But then at the same time, it's like it's that episode 6 change, that going back to that, like he went child friendly and it hurt.
Right.
I know that's very short.
No, that's exactly right. That's probably what influenced the change most of all. And in 2004, he told The Hollywood Reporter, "To me, the original movie doesn't exist anymore. And I'm sorry that you saw a half-completed film and fell in love with it, but I want it to be the way I want it to be." And that was all he said about the change to begin with. In 2012, people continued to ask him about it, and he spoke on it again. And he said, "The controversy over who shot first, Greedo or Han Solo, in episode 4, what I did was try to clean up the confusion, but obviously it upset people because they wanted Solo to be a cold-blooded killer, but he actually isn't. It had been done in all close-ups, and it was confusing about who did what to whom. I put a little wider shot in there that made it clear that Greedo is the one who shot first, but everyone wanted to think that Han shot first because they wanted to think that he's actually someone who would just gun him down." Now, this quote screams to me because he's changing his mind. He's changing the story. He's making it sound like, oh, it was always this way. We just didn't have the camera shots in there. So, and he just said, like, I don't know, a couple of years ago that he was like, I changed it because I wanted it to be the movie I wanted it to be now, not the movie I wanted it to be then. So it just goes to show that this guy has a problem with the scene. And it's not that it wanted to be one way or the other, because actually the actor who played Greedo, Paul something, I apologize, guys, I can't remember his name. He actually said in the original script, it said Han shoots Greedo dead. It didn't say Greedo shoots at all. That was added in later. So it was the original version. So you can read any quote you want to from George Lucas, but he changed it for reasons unknown. The last quote I have from him was in 2015. And he says, let's see, where is it here? Let's see.
See, we just need more rocks and more CGI animals. You know what? And then we also just, we also, because I want to add this controversy just because it's all in that, basically, that first part scene, Luke, Obi-Wan, and Han meet. Jabba originally was we only heard his name originally. It made him more fearful to think about. And then all of a sudden you just add this giant fat slug there, and very poor CGI at that. I know that back then it was probably top notch, but today it's just kind of like, yeah, that's so realistic.
God, it's so terrible.
I enjoyed it being the kind of the ship hanger person that said Jabba's looking for you and he's after you. I enjoyed that more. because it kind of made me wonder, are we going to see Jabba in this movie at that time? Or are we ever going to learn about who this Jabba is? Rather than now it's just Jabba talking to him with subtitles. And then now it's not that fearful because it's just like Jabba's after him, but he's right there. Grab him. Get one of your bounty hunters to do something.
Exactly. 100%. So I can't find the quote from 2015, but I remember paraphrasing here. He said, thinking of a mythological standpoint, I wanted to change it because Han Solo was going to marry Princess Leia. And in order to do that, she wouldn't marry some coldless, heartless, bloodthirsty killer. She would marry someone who shoots only in defense. That's a paraphrasing, but that was his last attempt to defend this change. And now, today, we have a Disney Plus version with a little McClunky added in there. And I find it fascinating that to this day, he's not in charge of Star Wars, but he's still technically kind of making changes to it right behind our backs. What did you think about McClunky when you saw it?
I laughed. Like, that's all I could do. What I'm really wondering, because I did rewind it because I was like, what? What I'm really wondering, though, is McClunky going to be a part of the Saga Skywalker movie set coming out at the end of this month?
Oh my God, you're right.
Is McClunky going to be part of that or be a Disney Plus exclusive? That's one of the, I've seen all the movies hundreds of times, it feels like. I'm going to rewatch it on Blu-ray just to see, is he going to go McClunky?
So I think I have an answer for you. I listened to a podcast called, I think it's called The Sound of Movies or something like that. And the podcaster interviewed the sound designer and the sound editor that are currently working at Lucasfilm. And they were working there when they were making the transition to Disney. And they said before they completely were taken over by Disney, George Lucas was making a few minor changes to the original trilogy again. And George approached them in their office one day, and he said to them, hey, before we finalize the 4K edition to give over to Disney later, we're going to make just a few slight changes to the sound. And the sound editor looked at him and he said, is it the Han shot first scene? And George Lucas said, he kind of stopped and freaked out. Who told you about it? And they were like, no, we just kind of assumed that you would want to do that again. So George Lucas, before he sold it to Disney, wanted to make a change one more time. So this was back in 2011 that this McClunky was added in. And the sound designer and editor, they were saying that they went through all these old files to find one piece of audio, at least one piece of audio that wasn't used from the original trilogy. And they found one word in that Greedo language, and it was McClunky. And that word had never been used in Star Wars yet. So they picked that to put in because George wanted an exchange from Greedo. And when there wasn't any transition there wasn't any word in English transcribed for what McClunky was. So only George Lucas knew what it was. And when they asked him what it meant, he didn't really explain to them. He just it just means I have you now. And then he left the room. And then they finished editing it in, and then they sent it off to Disney. And every time they tried to ask him about it thereafter, he wouldn't give them a response. He would laugh it off and walk away. So they don't even know why that he wanted to make the change again. And they still don't know technically what McClunky means. But that's a great interview, guys. If any of you want to listen to it, I will leave a link to its description in this podcast. And go check it out. It's a very fascinating interview about the people that worked on Star Wars back then, and they worked all the way up to the Rise of Skywalker today. These two sound guys, and they're brilliant. Talk about the entire process. So that's Han shot first. Who knows? Maybe it's still going to change hereafter. Maybe it'll be different in the big Skywalker Blu-ray DVD release. I don't know. But that's another big top controversy in Star Wars.